As mentioned, Hyperliquid was the only place really globally with any sort of liquidity that you're able to price these markets while they're closed. And so what we saw was oil linked futures and also gold, which we'll go through, rallied super hard on the back of this. Obviously, like there's supply chain concerns and stuff like that when a geopolitical event like this happens in the Middle East. And that, like, everyone in traditional finance is kind of left to speculate on what's going to happen on Monday when.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of WAGME TV. We're covering one of our favorite projects today, Hyperliquid, goes by the ticker HYPE. And particularly, we're covering it because it was one of the only places, maybe the only place, to trade oil when Israel and the U.S. struck Iran over the weekend. So obviously, we've kind of been in some political imbalance on that side, but it's interesting to see how it's affected the markets, and HYPE has benefited volume-wise. And so we're going to kind of cover what this means overall for the project and kind of dial in on what actually happened over the weekend. So I'm going to toss it over to Zoe, but just as a reminder, this is not financial advice, just entertainment purposes only. And Zoe's going to walk us through some of the kind of day-by-day, hour-by-hour breakdown on Hyperliquid.
Absolutely. I mean, it's one of our favorite projects right now, if not the favorite. Also, easily the most successful crypto project right now by a long shot, and it continues to prove its utility in different ways. And so this one, not the best of circumstances, obviously, but it turns out that Hyperliquid ends up being the one and only place globally that has, some sort of liquid venue to understand price action and price these different geopolitical events, which, taken in a vacuum in just this event, it's obviously not the greatest of circumstances. But if you kind of extrapolate this forward across, the impact that this could have across financial markets, it's definitely very, very interesting for Hyperliquid. So, the first thing, obviously, just to share kind of the story, as mentioned, Hyperliquid was the only place really globally with any sort of liquidity that you're able to price these markets while they're closed. And so what we saw was oil linked futures and also gold, which we'll go through, rallied super hard on the back of this. Obviously, like there's supply chain concerns and stuff like that when a geopolitical event like this happens in the Middle East. And that, like, everyone in traditional finance is kind of left to speculate on what's going to happen on Monday when the market's open and how is the market going to react. Meanwhile, you can actually just go and look at how the information is getting priced on Hyperliquid itself, which is pretty interesting. So that's kind of like, the general news on what happened, obviously proving out the thesis of what Hyperliquid as a decentralized venue to do this stuff, the role that it plays in kind of the global markets. And then if we come over here and actually check out the dashboard, you can see it in real time. Switch over here. So this is, the Hyperliquid Hyperstream dashboard where you can see real-time data. And here you can see, like, right in kind of this area right here. This is exactly, the 26th the market was open, but 27th and 28th here leading into this zone is the weekend. So the market is closed. And you can see, when the attack kind of happens and how that gets priced super rapidly into this market here, just on the hourly chart. Obviously, then, we come into this zone here where volume obviously picks up and everything. That's when the markets are actually open starting on Monday. And you see that, like, actually where the price resolved here is actually fairly close to where price opened on Monday in the actual oil markets, which is pretty interesting that, we're actually able to see that type of price discovery over the weekend on Hyperliquid. And then same can be said for gold. It's actually a bit cleaner of a chart. I'll pull that up here. If we go to the gold chart, the exact same thing, right? Right here in this zone over the weekend, call it from, about like that 27th Friday night into Saturday morning, everything kind of getting priced in as the news events are happening. And obviously, that got faded on Monday. That move got faded pretty heavily on Monday, and we're seeing the price action now. But generally speaking, like that was the move that I guess would have happened in traditional markets had they been open, which is pretty interesting to see. Obviously, also like surging volume over the weekend, not as much as during the weekdays, obviously, but still super super strong volume. And if you've been paying attention to this channel for a bit, we've been flagging these real world asset markets. Not only over the last few weeks, if you've been watching our videos on Hyperliquid, Ondo, Morpho, all of these projects, but also, right when these came out, if you go back and look at our videos from last year and late in the year, maybe September, October, November, when these things started getting released, we were like, guys, this is a big deal. And now, the broader market is starting to catch on in terms of like what the meaning of this is and how these can be used in the broader markets. So that's pretty much it on kind of the fundamental side. I'll throw it over to Garcia. Curious to get your thoughts on it as well
Yeah.
as go through the charts as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it. Like, I think what's exciting for Hyperliquid is like a lot of folks that are in the crypto space, have been, for lack of a better term, screwed by projects that don't really have any real world utility, right? They look like very interesting, like the thesis is great, and there's really no utility that pans out over the course of multiple years. With this, we keep seeing time and time and again, like Hyperliquid will have these moments where it's like, wow, the utility just kind of speaks for itself. And I think like slowly but surely, people in the space are kind of getting addicted to that, right? Like they understand, hey, okay, this is the spot to be if I'm going to trade perps. If I want to, go somewhere when potentially the markets aren't open, in the traditional financial markets, it's just an interesting place for folks to go and folks to continue to take their volume and take their assets to. So it's gonna be really, really interesting because they have a great business model, right? Like they have real world utility, which they turn into actual revenue, and then they use that revenue to do buybacks, right? So it's just like kind of this, as long as utility stays, like it's going to be a great project. So I think you nailed it. It's awesome. Yeah, let's dive into the charts and kind of see where we're at, because even though the overall thesis on Hyperliquid and what we're covering today is a general bullish sentiment, I would say the chart looks like we could be doing a little bit better. And so I'll kind of dive into what we're seeing. So this is the daily chart on Hype. What we're looking at right now is obviously this is about a month-ish ago, 5 weeks ago, we had this huge move to the upside. Something like, what do you call it? Almost 100%, right? And so it's kind of had to take a little bit of a breather from that. But if we're looking at the longer term trend, right now we're kind of coming into a area of resistance with multiple points of confluence, right? So whenever you're looking for a break to the upside or the downside, like you're looking for multiple points of confluence. So here what we have is we're running up against this trend line, this downward trend line. We're also coming against the 200-day moving average. And then if I delete some of these and run a little fib here, all the way down, you'll also notice that we're coming into resistance at the 0.5 fib as well. So we have multiple points of confluence here on the resistance. And we're also seeing the RSI kind of peter out a little bit here. So it has some more room to kind of break to the downside here to get us a little bit more oversold. And so there's space to go down further here for Hyperliquid. I think in the short term, I wouldn't be surprised if we see kind of like an upward down kind of coil movement here. This looks like it's turning into a bear flag, right? This way. And so I wouldn't be surprised if we see, a coil for, another few weeks here, and then maybe a slight break to the downside with the absolute bottom, at least short term, being this fib down here at about 21. But what we're hoping for is a solid resistance at, what would this be? The 0.382 fib. So we're hoping for resistance around like that 27 range. This would be an interesting place to pick up some more, some hype. And then from there, obviously, we'd want to see this ride this trend line up and break above this fib and go from there. But short term, it's looking a little bit more bearish. Obviously, long term, we're very bullish on this project, but short term, we got to keep an eye on that. It's looking like it is wanting to break to the downside. But we'll kind of keep an eye on that and keep you guys updated.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, you know how it goes in crypto. There's so much volatility with price action and everything, but there's no doubt that the future remains bright. And yeah, I mean, I guess we'll see how it develops over time. But for everything Hyperliquid related in terms of updates, news, fundamentals, chart stuff, if you guys are interested, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. We'd love to hear from you guys. And yeah, we'll definitely keep tabs on this project and continue to deliver the most recent news on it. So with that, we'll see you next time on WAGMI TV.